One.
Welcome to the Daily Objective. We are, after two weekend episodes, we are now in our usual time slot, but we are talking about the same topic: the terrorist attack against Israel, the invasion, what we called, I think, rightly, Israel's 9/11. So I'm joined by James Valliant. James, before we get into it, so there's a few things I want to address. One is a comment by Frank in the chat, who is upset with us over the title, which I understand. Let me make it clear. This title is, I hope, there's nothing in life that I hope for more than this being incorrect. I would love for Israel to do what needs to be done. The reason we have this title is because I don't believe that, based on having lived in Israel, having followed Israeli politics for almost all my life, having seen how Israel responds to different things, and I think the military response to this will be stronger than previous military action. But in terms of victory, what victory means here, certainly what I would define as victory, I don't see Israel doing it. So that is what we are here to discuss. We'll discuss that. We'll discuss some more. Of course, we will be discussing no other topics pretty much in the foreseeable future on the channel. James, this is your first time on the channel since this happened. Your thoughts on this or any other matter relating to it?
I am currently trying to contain the horror and outrage and anger that I'm feeling right now. This was a savage, brutal, unjustified, unprovoked, aggressive act of atrocity against civilians, an invasion, an unprovoked invasion, obviously backed by the evil regime in Iran. And it is a proxy war in that regard. But what just specifically happened over the last 2 days is so horrific that I have to admit that I'm very emotional right now. And I hope that my judgment on this is not being clouded and that people won't take some of my comments bad. But I woke up this morning, for example, to the news that 8 members of the United States House of Representatives are already calling for a ceasefire, are already defending these savage murderers, and calling for Israel to, in effect, turn the other cheek and lay down any response against this horrific aggressive action. These people are, I am going to try and contain myself here. These people are defenders of evil, racist, barbaric murder and atrocity. Members of the United States Congress, who in my view should all be expelled immediately from the United States Congress. They have the same squad that has been defending Palestinians and attacking Israel as an apartheid state, is already at it, demanding Israel not do anything in response. So if that's already starting here, I'm afraid I can't be very sanguine or hopeful about the West's response at being adequate or just here. America is just about the only country that gives any kind of moral support to Israel. Of course, Europe is going to go wobbly way sooner. And I am not reassured by the president's comments over the weekend that he says he's got Israel's back. No. He may not be as fast as these U.S. Congress people in declaring that Israel should unilaterally not defend themselves. But what he'll do is a few days from now, maybe 2 weeks from now, he'll say, oh, Israel's going overboard in their response, and he'll call for restraint. And at that point, he'll call for a ceasefire. And at that point, Joe Biden will go all wobbly and not give us even 1/10 of the response that is justly required in this case. We have spoken, you and I, before on this. And the last time we spoke on this, I think we both agreed that Israel already has a right to flatten Gaza and destroy Hamas. And at this point, well, of course, we've been prescient for decades about this, how we have been sanctioning in the West Iran over and over. 2 weeks ago, The president of my country released billions of dollars to the worst country in the world when it comes to supporting terrorism. My president has blood on his hands right now. He's been negotiating with Iran now. He reopened negotiations with Iran. He's allowed them to sell oil because of our domestic production cutbacks. He's got the price of oil to go up so that Iran and Russia get richer and richer and can support this. But just 2 weeks ago, he released $8 billion to these savage monsters. And don't tell me that that doesn't release money for the Islamic Republic of Iran to send out, and without the Iran support here, you would not have the coordination, you would not have the military support. And excuse me if I get a little emotional, because I am quite emotional today about this. In my view, given the fact that America, who's really only been the semi-friend of Israel here, is going to go wobbly because of the Democrats in our country, frankly. I don't like to be partisan, but on this subject, Republicans do tend to be a little better. But even our Republicans aren't going to give us the clear, just like in Israel, they're not going to get, even Benjamin Netanyahu probably won't give us a clear response on this. But when I see members in my own country, the only country that ever comes to the defense of Israel, going all wobbly like that, and their history of appeasing Iran and Hamas, I can only agree with you. I am frightened that we will not get anything like the just response, and that in a matter of days, the world will go negative on Israel when Israel hasn't done 1/10 of what is justified here and required here.
So James, we will be talking throughout the week about some of the responses of different countries. I think tomorrow on the reality show we're discussing the UK's response to this. So I'm going to touch on it briefly. I'm going to touch very briefly on the Ilhan Omars of the world. They're scum. They're not hopefully not relevant right now. Ultimately, in terms of what's done, there are two leaders who matter in this, which is Netanyahu and Biden. I don't like or trust either of them.
Right.
When I listen to the recent statements, I think Netanyahu again. This is bigger than anything that's ever happened. So the rhetoric is stronger than previous. I have to say, Biden's rhetoric is slightly more comforting to me, although again I don't trust him. So if he backs up the current rhetoric, he's backing it up by moving an aircraft carrier. That's good. To actually fully back the rhetoric, I think what needs to be done here, first of all, by Israel, what needs to be done is, of course, complete destruction of Hamas in Gaza. And one thing Netanyahu said on Saturday was, he told the people in Gaza, the so-called innocents, I have something to say about that as well soon, to leave. Now, that is rhetoric that if that is backed up, I'll be happy, because leave should mean leave or else. And I want to see that or else happen. But something else that needs to be happen and needed to happen, I think already, is a preemptive attack on Hezbollah in the north, in Lebanon. Right now, this would not be preemptive because there have already been there have been attacks this morning from the north. There will be more. Israel is showing weakness with every minute that passes, which again is the reason for this title, which I very much hope.
Razi, I heard that
and just one more point, which is the U.S. really backing Israel on this would mean that military action is also taken against Iran. The Iranian regime cannot continue to exist after this if the response is to be fully just.
That is the only solution. The only solution is regime change in Tehran. That is the only ultimate solution. It really, really is. I saw images in New York City of Israeli and American flags being burnt on the streets by young protesters from the Socialist Democrats of America. And at the end of the day, Americans need to realize that that is the kind of pollution that their students are being taught in universities. And the racist defenses and sanctions of aggressive violence of this kind, it is that kind of thing that will drain the moral clarity from this issue. And I absolutely agree with you. Israel needs to, I heard from the Israeli government that they're planning an invasion and a partial siege and occupation. They need to completely occupy. They need to completely control. They need to completely destroy everyone connected with Hamas, and they need to do it immediately. And there needs to be absolute clarity about this. Furthermore, you're absolutely right. The United States' main function here has to be to contain the evil regime in Iran, which is behind all of this. And until we get regime change in Tehran, and objectivists have been prescient about this for decades. They are the evil, the source of evil on this point. And until we do something about Iran, this will continue and go on. And the current regime in America, Biden, has been doing nothing but appeasing them. I would use much harsher language if this wasn't a YouTube broadcast against Mr. Biden and his appeasement of that evil regime, which has only encouraged this.
Just before I respond to that, there is a super chat from Wes Stewart. He says, I couldn't be more disappointed with the evasion of the Western world when it comes to the evil of Hamas, Iran, and others. And yes, that evasion has we've seen it for decades, and we are seeing it in the immediate response to this. And of course, with the fact that people are actually going out on the streets of major Western cities to show support for Hamas after this. So this is another point I wanted to make so I've been asked by some people, and I'm not sure if this is in the context of what we're saying on YouTube or what I'm saying on Twitter, but I've been asked not to talk about the details of what I see in videos which are shared by Hamas. So I want to make a point on that. I think it's important to discuss the details. I'm not sharing any of those images or videos on Twitter, but I am looking at them and I am talking about them. And I think it's important to go into the details. You know, people like to compare everything to the Nazis. I've been called a Nazi at least 3 times on Twitter yesterday. It's a word that's thrown around. In Israel, every year there's Holocaust Memorial Day, which is a day where, I grew up in Israel, so the regular programming on television, doesn't happen. Everything is related to the Holocaust. You have specific stories of the horrors of the things that were done to individuals. This was not just murder; it was complete abuse and dehumanization of people. The videos that Hamas has shared is of them doing the kinds of things that we hear Nazis do, and they share it with pride. So I think it is important. I think it's important for people to actually look at these videos.
They're desecrating bodies in the streets. They're desecrating dead bodies in the streets. They're going home to home in private residences in their invasion of Israel. They're killing indiscriminately. There was a concert, a peace rave going on, and they go and they indiscriminately kill young people and take hostages. They're indiscriminately killing children and taking old people hostages. Total civilian and a total random, unprovoked attack. I mean, they've taken hostages. I mean, there are going to be over 1,000 civilian deaths of innocents before this is all over and done counting. Who knows how many? If the West cannot show moral clarity here, then we are so far gone in our lack of moral clarity. We are so morally and philosophically corrupt. Yeah. I know that the title, one of our thumbnails, Turn the Other Cheek or Love Your Enemy, whatever it was, ladies and gentlemen, it is precisely that kind of Christian ethics that will disarm the West, that will make Europe so appeasing, that will even at the end of the day make America appeasing, and unfortunately even affect the government of Israel. You do not turn the other cheek here. You do not. You hit them back 100 times harder. You hit them back 100 times harder. That is the only appropriate, just, proportionate response here. And do I expect anything like that to happen? No, because we do not have moral clarity on these kind of issues.
Yeah, and just
emotion, but I am rather beside myself right now.
So just one last point on the comparison to the Nazis. The difference here is the numbers. It's only 1,000 or however many it is, not
God.
6 million, but the actions are identical. It would be every single Jew in Israel murdered if Hamas had that capability. And again, like this has always been the case. They kill as many as they can. Now they manage to kill many more than they've killed before. And who knows.
The goal is to kill Jews. The goal is to kill Jewish children. Yasser Arafat said it for years before he died. Hamas is still saying it. The government of Iran is still saying it. They will not be happy until Israel is gone and they have wiped the Jews out of the area. And then their next target will be America and the Americans and Jews there. Don't mistake this. Take them at their word. For gosh sakes, I saw in the pro-Palestinian protests in New York City today, someone holding up a swastika. I am not exaggerating. No, this is comparable. How many times on this channel have we said Nazi comparisons are normally way off base? You should really take a second and a third thought before you compare someone to the Nazis. But here you actually have a comparable case. They're going out to slaughter and do atrocities against innocent Jewish civilians. And they will not be happy until every Jewish person in the Middle East is gone or dead.
Yeah, and by the way, Nazi comparisons often come from the left, and somebody from the left was calling me a Nazi yesterday, and I looked at his profile. He's, a socialist. He's advocating for the people who are mass murdering Jews. So you have to ask, does he mean Nazi? Is that a compliment coming from him? Does he, is it a positive thing? Because he is actually advocating for their policies while using Nazi as a supposedly an insult, although if you think of his values, it shouldn't be an insult from him. We have some more super chats. Catherine says, so very horrible. I agree. Gail says, the reason why I found objectivism is it is the only movement that knows truly what justice demands. We have another super chat from Apollo Zeus. Thank you to all our super chatters. Another point I wanted to make in relation to something we talked about yesterday, Nikos and I were talking about it, and I want to kind of correct what I said, and which is my response to Nikos, which he I'm sure will be on shows together in the coming days and weeks, which we can discuss some more. But the whole idea of being, first of all, the so-called pro-Palestinians are not actually pro-Palestinian, but being pro-Palestinian means being anti-Hamas because Hamas is bad for the Palestinian people. Yeah, I don't know. When you see those videos and you see the cheering masses when they see the abuse of innocents, and they're just there, who are the innocent people on the Palestinian side? Other than children, children are always innocent. Even the children you see abusing other children are victims of the people who are educating them. But I'm thinking, if you are a good person, you would not want to stay in Gaza. You would, it's easy to say you would fight back, which of course would mean your certain death. But I'm not going to feel bad when I see, hopefully, very large numbers of deaths on the Palestinian side, and knowing that not every single one of them is actually carrying a gun. Some of them are just cheering along the people who are carrying guns and killing Jews.
We know what these Islamic Brotherhood Hamas people believe. Suicide is perfectly okay in their worldview if it can mean killing, destroying Western interests, killing Jews. That's what they'll do. They'll commit suicide. These people are religiously committed to it. And we saw that on 9/11. We've seen that in every kind of Islamicist terrorist attack. These people are not thinking rationally. They're not thinking rationally. It is not pro-Palestinian. I hear these statements about how most people in Gaza don't support, want a more moderate, what was it, 2006, 2005? Hamas basically got control over Gaza. And when Israel allowed mostly self-rule in Gaza. So for almost 20 years now, Hamas has been ruling Gaza. And if the people in Gaza don't want Hamas to rule them, they have to do something about it or get the hell out, if that is true. Now, we've discussed this before, but all aggressors in wars are themselves responsible for their own civilian casualties. In the case of Hamas, it is 10 times more applicable. They have explicitly put military targets behind human shields, hospitals, orphanages, residential neighborhoods. That's where they put their military stuff. So in this case, not only is the aggressor responsible for every single innocent who might, quote, innocent, who might die in this, but Hamas has personally responsible for every Palestinian child who dies in this conflict. And it could not be more clear. And if we in the West can't stand up and make that clear, it is Hamas who is murdering Palestinian children in any invasion that might happen. I know I'm a little fired up, but the lack of moral clarity on the part of our leaders in Israel and the United States is what's distressing me and causes me to get to fire up even more, because they cannot see what is such a clear case, a moral case. I mean, this is, if you had semi-decent moral principles, you'd be able to see this for the mass atrocity and overt act of war, which should call for the annihilation of Hamas, or you are morally confused and need to check your premises in a very serious way.
Yeah, and Israel has been morally confused for decades, and we are seeing the result of that. Which, again, back to today's title, is this is why we chose it. If Israel gains moral clarity now, I don't think the leadership will become objectivists, but if they gain moral clarity to the extent that they will say, oh, by the way, the actual leader has read Rand, he's read John David Lewis, he should know better. He does know better. He's speaking of evasion, Netanyahu is the king of evasion, So we very much hope a proper military response will prove us wrong, but the lack of moral clarity on Israel's side makes me think that's not going to happen. We have a super chat from Richard Cameron. He says, Dr. Peikoff called to nuke Iran on Fox after 9/11. I appreciated his passion for justice in the same way as I do James.
Thank you. I think that intellectuals need to have that kind of moral clarity, where there's no chance that America and Israel will have a decent moral response to this. So thank you, Ricky.
Yeah, and again, we will be, we have another super chat that just came in now. I'm really thankful for ARCUK for these shows and the clarification of the moral issue. I'm as outraged as you are. The situation is simply incomprehensible, and the appeasement of terrorism is appalling. Thank you, Nicholas, for that super chat. So again, we will continue to do these shows. I am guessing we will have the Daily Objective will be a true daily show now, with probably 7 days a week in the coming weeks. The reality show will be on this topic. We're not going to have 3 different topics as we usually do. We're going to have one topic, maybe from different angles. I'm not going to be on probably in the next couple of days because I'm traveling back to the UK. I am active on Twitter on this. I'm usually not active on Twitter. I am nowadays. You can follow me at Razi Ginsburg. James, I believe you recently joined. Sorry, it's X. I believe you recently joined X.
Yes, I have. I avoided Twitter, but Facebook's been giving me a little hard time, so I'm expanding my reach, and I will be on X. And my most recent tweet on X was, Hamas delenda est. Hamas must be destroyed, and every politician in my legislative body in America should, and every speech, whether it's about taxes or gun control or anything else, with the phrase, and Hamas must be destroyed.
So follow James for more of that. What is again your Twitter handle? Did you
My Twitter handle, James S. Valliant. And I'm easily found there. You'll see me through my followers. I obviously follow the Ayn Rand Institute and the Ayn Rand Center UK. You'll be able to easily find me there.
Yeah, and I am at Razi Ginsburg. You can see me tweeting about this and see people calling me a Nazi. We will be back on this channel in less than 3 minutes, I think, with the reality show, and again tomorrow with the Daily Objective and the reality show on this topic and new developments on it. People have complained to me about news coverage, and we're not a news channel, but we will attempt to the best of our ability to update people in a way which would mean that you are informed on the topic without having to go to sources that you probably don't want to go to. Yeah, thanks again, everybody, for watching. Thank you, James, and we will see you in a couple of minutes.